How are you today, sir?
Very good. And yourself?
Very, very well. Let's jump in, Mike. So we're going to do, this will be fun for you. We're going to do some elevator pitch training. And I know you've had this experience in the past, and it's not your first rodeo, but we'll have a little bit of fun and continue to dissect and go from there, right? So what we'll do is I'm in an elevator right now. Once I hit the top, I'll introduce myself just so the audience knows. Mike, where are you calling from?
From Sarasota, Florida.
All right. Sarasota, Florida. Starting to get cold in most countries, so we're starting to get jealous of Florida right now. It starts to kick in late October timeframe.
Right.
And so what we'll do is I'm hitting the top of the elevator. I'll introduce myself, right? And we'll kick off and get it going. All right, Mike, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Mike, my name is Singh. I am an ex Tampa Bay Lightning hockey player who made a lot of money looking to invest in interesting startups. Tell me a little bit about Analytics to Go.
Thanks. Great to meet you. So we're a 5-year-old startup, and we provide workflow AI solutions that help companies apply AI to improve supply chain performance. There's a problem with supply chain management right now, that the overall planning process is really outdated, that there's literally a World War II vintage process that was originally called sales and operations planning that takes about 3 weeks to complete each month. People like it because it's well orchestrated and the expectations for everybody in this are well known, but it still takes 3 weeks. And so if you have and you make assumptions about demand and about supplier performance, and those assumptions meet reality, and not all the assumptions are fulfilled. But if, for example, find out that demand is significantly different than you expected on day 22, you're in a difficult situation because you can't restart the planning process until day 1 of the next month, and you can't change the plan until one of the following month. So you have potentially a 5-week delay after a problem is identified before you can actually address it. So we use AI to facilitate the planning process and capture the dynamic constraints and assumptions that exist each month. And then we monitor supplier performance and actual demand. And when we see a problem that significantly out of bounds with respect to the assumptions in the plan, we can identify it and communicate to a decision maker. And then if they agree it's a problem, then we can solve the problem for them. They might say, no, that's not a problem. Our number one customer delayed an order by 1 week, but we're not worried about it. But if it is a problem, we can run 1,000 simulations in an hour and recommend an updated plan that reflects all assumptions about trade-offs and constraints and lead times that the S&OP process considered in the most recent planning process. So we solve problems for the knowledge workers that are there, and we basically facilitate the process. We help them monitor the actual performance, and companies with hundreds or thousands of products, very difficult time detecting patterns quickly. We do that very quickly. And then we help them make the changes in a way that coincides pretty closely to the optimal changes that they would have made had they run the entire process. Now, what offer this in a unique way. So you can break the supply chain management process into 3 main categories: the planning process, supply operations, and revenue operations. And we have 15 applications that support those categories. So we have approximately 5 applications per category, and you can start with any one of the applications like demand planning, or you can decide to run them all. But we offer an all-you-can-eat price. So you pay one price and use as many of the solutions as you want. And we operate them for the customer. So there's no investment in AI required, no investment in deployment required. And people can deploy the first application in about 3 months, the second one in 2 months, and the rest 1 month at a time.
Yeah.
And the reason we have a slight delay at the beginning is we have to combine an understanding of their business rules
Sure.
with understanding of their data in order to support them effectively with AI.
Got
The
it.
market for supply chain consulting was over $100 billion a year.
Yes.
Up until now, supply chain AI has been very small because AI applications in general haven't been designed to capture constraints and manage them effectively.
Yes.
With our technology, we do that very well. And we think we can unlock the potential of the market with this new paradigm for supply chain management.
Got it. And where do you need help, Mike? How can I help you?
So in three areas, sales and marketing, of course. So we have customers who have the largest meat packer in the world as one of our customers, for example.
Sure.
But despite all of our best efforts, we're the world's best kept secret right now. So we have to solve that problem. Okay.
Yes.
And then one of the things we've realized is we have to reuse our IP very effectively in order to keep the cost down. And so we have a concept for doing that where we separate the industry details, the data set details from the application using a technique called wrappers.
Okay.
But we need to invest significantly more information. And then lastly, we have to develop a really sophisticated partnership model that can operate both at a operational level and a strategic level. At operational level, let's show Deloitte how to manage the customers where we provide technology and they provide the consulting. At a strategic level, let's find teams who take responsibility for vertical markets, who use technology, and we create another company and let them, benefit from building a company of their own.
Got it. Understood. That makes sense. And what do you need capital for that? What do you need? What do you need to make that happen? Right. I mean, I have some connections, but do you need capital to scale this as well, or is it just the resources?
So there's a big risk in our company right now that I think we have the best mousetrap, but we have to execute very other people.
It's about execution. Yes.
Right. And we recently won a project with JBS, world's largest meat packer, and we competed against Google and Accenture. And I think they were astonished when we won, absolutely astonished. And I'm sure more people than we have tried to figure out how in the hell did we lose to A to go. All right, so they can figure that out. So we have to scale really rapidly. So there's more than one option here, but the ask is for $10 to $25 million.
Got it.
So that we can really scale in a way that prevents companies from duplicating our ideas over the next 24 months and then out executing us in the time frame that occurs after.
Got it. Excellent. All right, let's break this apart a little bit, Mike, if we may, right, and go through this. Obviously, fantastic what you're building, right, and congratulations over the last 5 years that you've spent building this up. What I want to talk a little bit about right now is I want to structure this, right, because when I think about the pitch itself, you've been at this, you've been working on this technology for quite some time, right? And you talked about kind of the different layers, right? The prediction engine that you have in place, right? And being able to, because when we think about it, the first element around this is the secret sauce around supply chain. Supply chain is that the forecasting and prediction engine. That's the holy grail, right? Just to be able to, and then in real time be able to kind of paint scenarios so you have a solution in place. And it seems like you've done something within all the elements that you've built, because at the end of the day, you're playing an algorithmic game, right? You know what I mean? You're looking at information and data, and you have invested the right time, energy, and effort in the right data people, right? You got the right hackers on board that have been able to compute and be able to make this fly, right? So the first thing around it is I want to know, and without going into too many details from a company perspective, right? Whatever you can share in this sphere is, I want to know a little bit more about the engine and the algorithm that you've created, because that's the first magical piece. Okay. So that's my first question. I have a couple other questions that are going to wave around it, but tell me about why your magic is better. Your AI engine is better than any other AI engine.
Because we've adopted a practical approach.
Okay.
Most people that have focused on supply chain have seen it as a gargantuan data model, and they're just hoping that they can get the opportunity to look at all of the data, figure out everything, and do all the thinking that needs to be done to run the supply chain. So basically eliminate all the knowledge workers and let the algorithm do all the work. And it's just not practical. And guess what? All the knowledge workers who are working in supply chain don't like the idea very much, right? So what we do instead is we've decomposed 3 categories I mentioned of planning, supply operations, and market operations into key workflows. And then what we do is we provide insights that are helpful to the knowledge workers who operate those workflows, like demand planning or like inventory optimization. And we also provide decision recommendations that help them and do a better job more quickly of identifying when they should make changes to the plan or the execution. Okay. And
so the 3 areas you talked about: planning, the planning, there's like a planning stage where you're kind of forecasting and getting these pieces together. Then you have the supply layer, which is like making sure that there's enough coming in, and the third element is the revenue side, right? The market demand side, right? So you kind of need those things. And if I may, Mike, I'm just going to jump in and translate just in terms of, as I understood what you're saying, because I think this is really important, because this is exactly why, sometimes the hackers just hack, right? And their goal is to create this new utopian society where there's no knowledge workers, there's no one else doing this. And what you're saying is that you've been able to focus on the business drivers, right? So Mike, given your personal background in management consulting and all that stuff, you kind of gotten the right pieces to focus on. You help people prioritize accurately. And what you've done is you've kind of created a human supported AI engine, right? Where the knowledge workers are part of it. And because you bridge those 2 things together, right?
To augment the knowledge workers' efforts.
Yeah, because it's 2022, 10, 20 years from now, maybe you don't need a knowledge worker, right?
Right.
But right now you need human supported AI, right? And so the idea of prioritizing accurately and getting them to act according to their priorities and making sure that the knowledge worker is there is part of your secret sauce, along with, and that's how you've set up your engine. Right. Okay.
And one pitch we make to the knowledge workers is our technology won't require you to change your current process at all.
Yeah. Okay. So they don't change their process. There's no change in process. And tell me about, like, when they utilize this, because you talked about the fact that there's the cost of deployment is so low. Tell me a little bit about the outcomes, right? With you can use an example, but what are some of the outcomes they have, and how fast do they start to get outcomes? Because you have your process in place. Tell me more about the AI deployment and the results.
Sure. It's everybody has a part of the supply chain that they care most about. So I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. But in inventory planning, you can have a terrible outcome very quickly if you're slow to react to change in the marketplace. And so, as I described it during the pitch, right now, if there's a significant change in the demand pattern, that sticks to their planning process won't react to that change for 5 weeks. And so you're going to be in a situation where you're building inventory that's not going to sell. It's not, but you're not changing the plan for 5 weeks, because there's so many knock-on effects, you can't decide what to change it to. That's the problem we solve. We show them how to change from the current plan that they know to be suboptimal to a more optimal plan. And we can do it in 1 hour.
Wow. Interesting. So, when I think about what you're trying to do as well, right? Because I think the thesis around this, Mike, right, as I'm listening to this, is that supply chain implementation is hard, and it's not a one size fits all. Okay, that's one thing. And because it's not a one size fits all, you and your team over the last 5 years have been able to understand the different verticals, the importance in terms of planning, the supply side, the demand side, the marketing side of everything. And you have this knowledge on how to implement things, right? Where you don't change the process and you can get immediate results.
There's one piece that I might mention to you.
Yeah.
It's related to what you're saying, but what we've learned is we have to understand not only the data sets, but the rules that govern the process.
The what? The what? Sorry?
The business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the business rules. Yeah.
Right. And so we have essentially we call it a blueprinting assessment that is the beginning of our relationship with a customer, which its main objective, of course, to collect information about their IT architecture and their data, but more importantly, from our perspective, to catalog the business rules that they use to operate their business. Because once we understand their business rules and they validate them, then it becomes obvious to us how AI can help them. And
got it. Understood.
Insight, you're lost. There's no communication between the data scientist and the knowledge worker.
Understood. Mike, I want to talk a little bit about where you are now and where you want to go now as well. Okay. Because I understand, like, and I actually, you and I have spoken previously, but I wanted to unpack it based on what I heard today. Do you know what I mean? There is a restriction that I put on myself. I'm like, I'm going to pretend I did not go on your website. I'm going to pretend I don't know you. I'm going to pretend that I'm just like a typical American investor. Okay. Right. So, Mike, I want to come back to now where you're going. Okay. Where you're going. Because again, it comes back to what you're good at, right? Rolls-Royce makes engines, right? I know BMW sells the car. Rolls-Royce does not sell cars anymore, right? They sell the engines. They do the engines really, really well. They have the likes of Boeing and other manufacturers that will buy their engine, right? I think they power almost all planes now. And those planes are then sold off to the likes of the airlines or leased out to them or whatever the case is. And that's how the supply chain works. And when I think about what you're doing, I think about that exact same model, right? Because when I think about it, I'm like, you have the intelligence, the thought process, the implementation capability, and you have this opportunity now where you can partner with the implementation workers, right? The consulting firms of the world to help power their value offering, okay? And let them work with your team in terms of that implementation and that business development element. Because you should be powering, you have all these verticals, right? You have several verticals that you're playing with, right? And you have business rules related to meat packing all the way through, and it could probably work with consumer electronics. It could work with other things too, right? Best Buy could. So the thing is you know, I always find, and this is really interesting because Mike, you've gone through this over 5 years, about what you're really, really good at. Okay, what you want to exploit and what you do not want to, you know, and the value that you're leaving on the table for other people to come on board.
Sure.
Right.
As I mentioned in the pitch, I think our biggest risk is being out executed right now. I think we have a really good solution. We have customers that are happy, that will endorse what we do, and they're really impressed with our technology. So we have that part really works now, but we have to scale quickly. People understood the technique we're using, quite frankly, and our group of friends here, they could replicate it.
Sure.
Okay. So what I have to do is kind of get down the experience curve really quickly, where I've got a lot of customers, a lot of investment, and I've really created automation in 2 areas. One is the reuse of IP, and the second is the configuration deployment of IP.
Got it.
The third part that's important, of course, is the kind of the services provided. But I think guys like Deloitte and lots of organizations or lots of individuals in participating with as a strategic partner could manage the customer, and we can teach them how to collect the business rules and how to collect the data set information, and we've got that all well detailed at this point. So it's definitely that can be done. It's hard for me, again, speaking frankly, to say for sure how much money I need to
scale that up.
The IP process and the deployment and configuration process, because we're doing stuff that people haven't done before.
Yes,
we'll make progress on it. And so my part of me says, okay, I actually don't. The fact that there is no answer to that question might be an advantage. You just have to stay ahead.
Exactly.
Keep moving quick.
Yeah. So, because the thing I look at this, the idea, you got all the pieces, and what you want to be able to do is you are creating, your business is a B2B2B business, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so you've tested the waters as a B2B business, you've gone direct. And what you've discovered is that it makes more sense for you now, okay, to have the centralized platform with the right marketing activation to bring in the best supply chain consultants around the world. Okay, it could be that small boutique shop in Toronto, it could be the Deloittes of the world in London, and you bring them all in, enable them, and be able to provide them an annuity, right? Because they'll come in, they'll be a hero, right? Because you're elevating the next generation of supply chain providers, right? Like supply chain consultants, you're disrupting them, basically. Right. Am I fair? Is it fair to say that, right?
Absolutely.
But you have all these systems.
Yeah, they have something we need because they have all the customer relationships. I can't spend 2 decades those. I need to move much quicker than that. Yeah. So I need their help too.
But does that make sense? Like you're kind of disrupting them, but what you're saying is, I'm going to be the person that makes all this work for them, right? And that's kind of the process, right? Because that's where you can use that capital, bring those people in, and build that army of people.
Yeah,
we're going to deploy, and
Yeah, and there might even be an option for innovation on their part. So business rules take insight, right, and experience. Yeah. And I could foresee an industry-focused team at Deloitte that has better insight in the industry they care about than we do, and better than we could ever have. Yeah, and better insight could be reflected in the quality of the solution too.
Sure. So, but that's their value add to maintain their position in the lifetime value of their relationship with their customer, the end customer that uses it.
That's right. And our pricing model is a good one, I think, by having this all-you-can-eat pricing and allowing people to have 15 engines. And what we've learned, oddly enough, is that it costs us much more to operate 30 engines for a customer than it does 1 or 2. And because the problem we have with each new customer is understanding their business rules and their data. And so once we understand those, then we can operate 1 or 2 applications or 30. But from the viewpoint, I think it becomes really hard for them to stop working with us as long as we do a good job. Why would they want to go through the process of 30 different solutions that are in their processes?
And tell me, I want to talk about where this goes now, right? Because I want to paint that picture. I feel like we talked about the human-supported AI platform, the different use cases and scenarios that you've tested out and proven out, and that you can create the right tool for prediction, and all the forecasting and implementation and all that stuff. You got that right. This idea of a practical AI engine. We got that now.
Right.
My question to you is, let's think about how many supply chain consultants that are out there that could potentially use what you're doing to elevate their practice. Deloitte is the big player, right? That's the big fish, and obviously everyone understands that. But tell me about, by chance, I've Supply Chain Asia is a conference, right? They actually have big conferences around supply chain, and there's hundreds of people that attend these things, right? Tell me, Mike, about because I want to paint a picture right now, Mike. If you were, imagine what your product is Microsoft Excel, okay? How many people that need to use this, right? So coming back to the supply chain experts, right? How many of them can, tell me a little bit about that, Mike?
Yeah, I think I would interpret your question as what scale of partner do we need?
Yeah,
And, it depends a little our approach to partnering more
sure,
than anything else.
sure.
That we're actually going to have a conversation with a Canadian supply chain group
Yeah,
who working with a friend of mine
yeah,
on marketing. He says, well, let's have a conversation and see what they think. And they have about 30 people,
sure.
and they're apparently really talented and
Yeah,
large number of loyal customers. And for us right now, being exposed to a few dozen customers, and
mm,
so they could definitely understand what we do, and we can, at our scale, we understand how they could work with us. It might
right.
be it's harder to partner with companies that are so much bigger than you are,
Mm.
right? Because their partnering resources exceed all the resources you have for the whole company.
Well,
And
that's
so
where the capital raise comes in, right? You need
that's
to
right.
build that team, right? Because when I think about this, right, I feel like that's kind of the critical path, right? The critical path around these boutique, small, mid-size, even large supply chain firms building that out. Because once you get this implemented, I'm assuming the lifetime value of the customer is pretty good, right, Mike?
Yeah.
A good
The way
business.
we're pricing right now would be about $750,000 per customer per year.
Okay,
Which
so it's not a small amount of money, right?
That's right.
That's
And
that's a Rolls Royce right there, right? $750,000. You get a Rolls Royce of. So the thing is there's enough money to be had, right? In this equation, right?
if they implement all 15 models,
Yeah,
then on a monthly basis, it's about
it,
$5,000 per
yeah,
model.
yeah. So the model is there, right? Who would buy this business, Mike? Which cloud software cloud are you powered by? Are you on the Amazon cloud? What cloud are you using?
We if we have a choice, we choose Azure, but we work wherever. So
Okay.
sometimes we work with Amazon. It just depends.
Depends on the environment, right?
It's
I'm
the customer that tells us where we're going to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Mike,
The
as
thing
I'm
I should
thinking
mention,
again.
if you
Yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead.
So
Yeah.
one of our investors is the CEO of a semantics technology company called Cambridge Semantics.
Yes.
And it's been a really interesting company. They haven't fulfilled everything they thought they could. But one of their big problems is they're a platform without a product or solution on top of the platform. They're all about manage the data very effectively. And that's a big issue for us too.
Yeah.
But they know 100 times more about managing it. And as you scale more and more, then the managing of the data is a really big deal.
Yeah.
Where their sales process, the way it works right now, is they have to sell the platform CIO, and it's conditional upon then the company carrying out a pilot on some topic that the company wants to carry it out on. Those are really difficult sale. With us, everybody's got a supply chain, or many of their customers have supply chains.
Yeah.
And it would be real obvious to say, okay, we'll do this, and then here are the 15 solutions that we have, and we'll pilot with one of our solutions. And so it changed. So I think they would like to partner with us. We're discussing it with them.
Yeah. So this idea of try before you buy is really interesting too, right, Mike? Because if you can build this out right, and your relationship allows them to see the magic,
right,
that's also really powerful. But I want to my question to you is, you do all this right, suddenly you are powering the demand supply, you have this human supported AI engine across. Who would buy your business, Mike? Who would buy
it? I think the right buyer is probably Microsoft. Because, and the reason I say that is that the big companies solve their problems eventually, whether A2Go helps them or not. But the multitude of medium-sized companies probably aren't going to have a solution, are not going to be competitive unless they have something like A2Go come in, and Microsoft would be the right channel for that. And so we don't have resources available to work to really manage the Microsoft partnership that we have effectively. But that's in mind too, that we work more effectively with them, and they're very partner friendly, that their salespeople get paid for partner sales, and it makes a lot of sense. And lots of people focus on Microsoft Dynamics, and
of course,
and it's all business process in the end. So I mean, ours doesn't have to be only supply chain. It's just that we have to go somewhere, but over time, you could take it in a lot of different directions. So Microsoft would be sort of the, if you think about it from not from Mike's perspective, right, but society's perspective, that's where we do the most good, I think.
Got it. Mike, lots to unpack today with what you're doing. Lots to unpack. Okay. In terms of fundraising, right? What was the number again? How much do you think you need? How much do we need? We got to put a number to it because I want to ask for money. I like asking for money, Mike. When I do
I have to have 10 million, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a minimum in what you're doing.
Yeah, right? But I think if we have 25 million, our chances of really being successful go up dramatically.
Okay. I'll ask for both.
Okay.
The Mike, my last question before we go. You talked about $100 billion, right? AI implementation and supply chain being a small subset of that.
So basically, supply chain consulting was the largest operations consulting category. And there's almost no AI in that category right now, which is a noun, right? And the reason
tell me about that. Tell me about that. How big is the supply chain consulting ocean? 100. That's how big it is. Wow. And how much of AI is implemented on this?
Very little. Very little. So
less than 10%, less than 5%, probably.
Less than 1% even. Yeah, and the problem is AI wasn't designed with all of the dynamic constraints and assumptions that are built into supply chain. Just like AI for 60 years has been focused on predicting something like weather or mortality or traffic accidents, et cetera. So all the work that's been done, and we have a technique that I'm not going to really talk about on the way we're doing that. It's a very clever technique.
Yes.
And we now have a way to do that. And that's our secret sauce.
Secret sauce. Awesome. Love it. Mike, may I pitch analytics to go to you?
Okay. I'd love it.
Now, there's a lot to unpack here. So Christine, if it's okay, I'm going to go a little bit longer than the typical 60 seconds, just because there's a lot of sound bites. And I know people have been giving some feedback on the Zoom chat. Some people will also give feedback live on LinkedIn. But I'm going to pitch analytics to go. Okay. Practical AI, human supported, we talk about that. Supply chain. You've been working on this for 5 years. You have developed the right processes, the modules, and now you're looking to exploit this. And the way to exploit this is a B to B to B opportunity, right? You need 10 to 25 million dollars, right, to really get this to the next phase. All right, you get to introduce yourself, Mike, and I get to pitch.
Okay.
My turn to pitch you. Go ahead.
Hi, Ash. I'm actually a former hockey player from the Tampa Lightning, so some money that I'd like to invest. And heard you
always great. So, Mike, great to meet you. My name's Ash Singh. I'm part of the Analytics to Go team. As you might know, supply chain has become a very topical element around the world. It is the backbone for our global markets. And I have been in this space for over a decade. And over the last 5 years, I have been pioneering the thought process on how to practically bring artificial intelligence to supply chain. The supply chain consulting world is $100 billion market, but AI is just a fraction of that. And we are the pioneers in allowing us to provide the practical tools to formulate, set up, deploy, and monitor and forecast demand and supply within this sector. Whether it's meat packing or a fast food restaurant, we've implemented, applied it, and we are now at that stage where we've proven the model. And not only that, we've been able to prove it within kind of 15 different sectors, right? In terms of our technology. And we are now at that stage where we're looking to scale. And so our model right now, having proven what we want to be able to do, we are now we're seeking capital. We're looking for $10 million as our first tranche, followed by a $15 million round, to be able to take the human-supported AI platform that we've built and create a best-in-class B2B2B platform where we can get supply chain experts and consultants from around the world to adopt our technology, okay, and help them facilitate and drive long-term results and long-term lifetime value, and be that intelligence platform that's going to help elevate them and be the knowledge network orchestrator of artificial intelligence in the supply chain space. We are very confident in our ability to execute this. We just now need growth capital to make this work. And our goal is to take this company and take it to our first $100 million of revenue. And from there, we are very confident that companies like Microsoft that are looking for downstream opportunities and revenue are going to find us a very interesting acquisition candidate. I'd love to chat to you more about some of the examples that we've used, how we've implemented it, and how supply chain consultants around the world love what we do. Thank you.
Beautiful. Very nice.
Okay. So I wanted to pack the story, Mike, right? Pack the story, right? So you can see there was two parts. One was trying to explain, get the pieces done, but then I got into like the growth capital story, Mike, now, right? You've spent the 5 years, you know what you're good at. You know that. And you also know how you're going to power this, right? And the idea for me, I see a beautiful opportunity where Mike and his team have 100 supply chain consultants and experts interacting with you every week. Okay. And you're slowly building there, right? And getting to that point where you have 1,000 consultants that are, you know, you're going to have people that you meet, some of them that are going to test and try out what you do, and you scale from there, right, Mike? That's what it is.
I think the partner model can really be value creation for us and for the partners, because we enable them to do things they can't do right now. And our understanding of business rules and in different industries gets enriched.
Yes.
Every time we improve the wrapper. And so it
yeah,
really
absolutely
works both ways.
And how you build that out, right? And you know what I'm thinking about with the capital that you win, because the first thing is how do you plan on doing it, right? But with the capital that you raise, these B2B opportunities do exist, Mike. There's people out there that have been very successful in facilitating those components, right? And you know, just scaling that up. Right? That's how I see it happening. And, you know, when you do the pitch, you know, and I think you need at least $10 million to activate all these components, because getting in front of supply chain experts isn't cheap, right? You know, the cost of a meeting might be a couple $100, and you have to facilitate that and build your whole ROAS model, return on advertising spend model out. But the idea of baking this in, getting these components right, and then just building that roadblock, that's all you're doing, Mike. Do you know what I mean? For me, it's when I think about this pitch, it's obvious to me that you've spent enough time, you have enough personal experience, and with analytics to go the 5 years to be that right person to do it. Now it's just around that growth, right? The investor is betting on your thought process of growth. And so the first question they might ask is, okay, walk me through how you're going to get the first 50 supply chain experts that are going to come on board, consultants that are going to come on board, right? And that's what we need to just make sure we get down right.
Right.
Okay. And I think there's ways for us to solve that, and we'll take that offline.
Excellent.
But that's kind of where I want to steer it now, right, Mike? Because if you saw kind of the element of your pitch and how I composed mine, yours was a little bit more focused on the technology and what you've done, right?
I can't help it. I try so hard.
Yeah, no problem. And that's why we're here. But what I wanted to do was I kind of shifted it into what we've done very quickly. You know what I mean? Human supported, you know. I didn't say things like, you know, knowledge experts love us, but I could have, right? There was a couple of line items that you were good at saying, so I didn't want to replicate. And then I talked about where you need to go and how you know what I mean? That whole supply chain ecosystem and those experts coming on board and this B2B2B play, and then potentially where it could go and why. Right. Do you know what I mean? We packaged it together because your pitch is not a startup pitch. It's not a seed state startup pitch. This
Right.
is a growth conversation now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But the thing is I needed to share some of the original elements of your pitch, because you might not be speaking. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning's guy is not a supply chain expert, right? If you were somebody different, I might have jumped into growth a little bit more. But does that make sense, Mike?
That was very helpful.
It's all about, it's like, and this is where the unbiased elements comes in, Mike, because I haven't worked on your business for 5 years, right? I haven't. For me, it's like, wow, this guy's got gold. He's sitting there with gold. We just got to shine it up and get some more people and hand that gold, and that gold will multiply, and so forth. And so, going so far as identifying somebody who's the head of growth for your business now, right? Being in a situation where it's like, okay, I went and this guy was the guy that was in charge of growth for Salesforce when they first started, or, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's where you're going, right? And driving from there. But Mike, that's kind of where I see the angle firing, let's get that growth story in place. Okay. I think the supply chain issue, right? And the fact that there's been so much negative information about supply chain is important. It's topical. And, I just think, the most powerful thing that jumped out to me, and I had to unpack it a bit, was this $100 billion supply chain consultant thing. Those guys are going to be dead in 5 years. Am I right?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
It's like this. For me, I'm a supply chain consultant, and I've been successful using my methodologies and stuff like that. But when I think about it, if you do not have an AI engine backing you now in 2022, if you don't set that up, you're actually going to be dead in 5 years. Is that fair to say, Mike?
It's the paradigm is changing right now.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like, right. And that's what you are, right, Mike? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You are the gasoline, the oxygen, the water, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But that's how I see your product. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a supply chain person and you do not have an AI methodology, a practice, an implementation strategy, right? Somebody else will, and you're out. Okay. Yeah. And I'm the guy that's going to do it, and I'm going to partner with you, and we're going to make that happen, and I'm going to enable you, right? That's how I would look at it, right? And why wouldn't a supply chain person be like, Mike, please, does that make sense, Mike?
Absolutely. Interesting thing to close us out, move on, but our lead gen team was reviewing some information with me this week, and it's an external company, and they have some way of going out to the public domain and identifying what people have publicized they're looking for. And so we have, with these 15 different options, there's thousands of people looking for each one.
Yes.
It's only a couple hundred looking for supply chain AI.
Yes.
And because they can't get their head around how could you use AI to really optimize my supply chain. And what's interesting, that to me is really proof of the opportunity, because nobody's strung yet and had a practical way to allow the entire end-to-end supply chain to take advantage of AI, and we do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's putting context in it, right? Because your 15 modules are actually solving a problem. Supply chain AI is just like a topic. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No one gets hired for supply chain AI. That's just the title they put on their card.
However, SAP did that with ERP. It was, for ERP, it was all individual applications. Then ERP strung them all together.
Yes.
There's a big opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mike, thank you very much. I know we went a little bit over time, but it was great to unpack a little bit, shift the focus a little bit. We'll send you a recording of it, right?
Thank you.
And congratulations on